the Gladys, the Kellys, the Benjis.
If you listen to the wind,
You
will hear the names of the original Métis families who lived on Moccasin Flats. This area was home to a group of shacks precariously perched on the banks of Windram Creek in Chetwynd, formerly known as Little Prairie.
This is where, when they talked about Coutres there, this was their house, wasn't it? Yeah, Coutres family lived right here.
The Cottrell family lived here, which was Pat and Florence Cottrell, and you can see them in the Moccasin Flats. They were, I think they said there was like 16 of them in the
14
in the little house. So this is where they lived, right behind the Legion here.
And none of those trailers were there, eh? Like
No,
that Legion sub wasn't there.
There's not. That was all bush. That was their houses here, right?
Yeah.
About where we're standing. And we'll go up further, is just up the hill here is where my grandma Marceline lived, where I lived and was raised. I'm trying to figure out today, I think we moved here in 1960. We squatted up here. Nobody owned their properties. So you can see we're climbing this little hill here. Our road used to be...
Wasn't this the road here?
No, the road is right here, Lee. That didn't go past further to anything. So as you can see, as we're going, you can see where our road was. It was a dangerous road, but it's the only road we had. As you can see, this was the road here. And then we climb up here. And maybe we'll go up here because this is where I lived with my grandma. I didn't realize they cleared this far because everybody else lived that way. Now it's just all a park. So I think the only thing we could see is where we used to live, which was in this area here. But there's no paths, no memorabilia, nothing I can go on. But this is the exact spot where we lived from 1960. I was just trying to do my math. So I think 1960, and then we moved to Wabi Crescent in 1971.
There was a place when I was younger, we just called it Moccasin Flats. We had no power, running water. In the winter we melted snow to take a bath.
Well, it was like a tar paper shack, I guess you'd say. It was not much insulation. It was cold in the wintertime. You had to keep the fire going. Have lots of firewood and no running water. It's pretty hard struggle.
Today the houses are all gone. An airport stands where we once lived. We all
in about 1977, I was very, very fortunate to get the original Moccasin Flats 1 film. It was on 16mm film, and I showed it to all the people on Sesame Street in that house, right over there. Phil and Betty Gladue owned that home. And so all the kids were all scattered around, and they were adults, and we watched the original Moccasin Flats 1 video. It was exciting for them. They saw themselves figure skating. They saw themselves jumping. It was an incredible video. And it was momentous in a way too, and historical. This road here is the original Moccasin Flats road into what was the airport and also Rotary Park. So this was the in and out of the entire area.
Sesame Street. Some were loggers, some were trappers. Bannock and moose meat was a favorite food. There were hard times.
It wasn't no streets or nothing. It was just like, it was a flat. That's why they called it Moccasin Flats. There was Indians all the way around. It was all flat. I know it sounds funny, but it's true.
My grandmas were my doctors, and yeah, I remember being as a child, I was happy. Mm-hmm. We didn't have running water. We had a wood stove and a well. It was all good.
My grandma.
Oh yeah, I was born on Bannock Street and Stovepipe Avenue.
When they were born, I was outside listening. In the back, eh? And my grandmother were there delivering them. I was back by the woodpile. I heard my mum just screaming, eh? I didn't know what the heck was going on.
It was a nice community. Everybody helped each other. You know, everybody helped each other. And if you needed help, like neighbors helped, they come and help you all the time. You know, that's there was no rush and nothing rushing. You know, it was yeah, there's a lot of help, a lot of actually love there. There was love there. Put it that way.
But try to listen a little closer. And what do you hear? You can hear stories in Cree and English of how these families planned the move and helped build their own homes. You will hear of the challenges they faced, the words of townspeople who doubted their tenacity in staying the distance with the housing project.
Of course, some of the people of Chetwynd, maybe even some who mingled with the Moccasin Flats folk decently enough around a public bonfire, because after all it was Christmas, predicted disaster. The Indians couldn't pull it off, they said. They'd started, but they couldn't finish it. Wait and see. There were, let it be said, a lot of people in Chetwynd who only barely bought the mayor's financial arguments, who really didn't want to see the town discolored.
They said we'll never make it. We'll never do nothing. We'll not do anything. We won't succeed. That's the word I was looking for, succeed. We'll fail.
How did that make you guys feel?
Well, just...
It made us more obligated to live a better life.
The story starts well before 1971, with many letters and phone calls exchanged between Victoria and Ottawa by the Mayor and Council of Chetwynd to MLAs, MPs, and bureaucrats. The goal was to find the best housing program for Métis families and to give their children equal opportunity to education, sports, healthcare, and jobs in the future.
It's a happy time. You know, for the kids now, they had a big voice, because the reason why the housing actually was developed is for the kids to get educated. Prior to that, there wasn't one Aboriginal kid ever graduated from Chetwynd School, ever.
His wife did a lot in the community. I remember we used to have a little, we went in the basement, we had to wrap all these gifts, Christmas gift before Joe Embry came along with his little,
yeah.
Taking them to the community and have a Christmas party, a Christmas gathering for all
in the middle of the town with the
Yeah.
great big bonfire.
Yeah.
He showed up there in his skidoo, I believe.
Yeah,
Joe Embry. That's in the video. Part one.
Mrs. Oberly and I, a few ladies. Oh, we had to rap all night.
You bought yourself a ticket for a train you'll never ride. You covered up your
For the Métis people, this opportunity was a road to a bright future. But for Chetwynd's mayor, Frank Oberly, this meant putting his neck on the line.
They immediately agreed to the land. There was lots of land up there and not doing anything. So we flew home. I flew home on cloud 9, and of course proudly proclaimed to my council that we got the greatest idea that ever came across my desk. And every one of them, all 5 of them, in unison declared it the craziest idea they'd ever seen. None of them could see the economic benefit to the municipality, 32 new houses in a community of 800 people or 1,000 people at best. All of them guaranteed by CMHC, and you know, how could it possibly fail? One of them piped up, nobody ever built me a goddamn house, of course, and you know, so the old attitudes of you know, some of these things bring out the best and the meanest spirits in people, and my council was possessed with the latter.
Frank was the one that did a lot of work. I have to give him a lot of credit, and him and his wife he put his career on the line, I would say, when he did that. Even when he wrote the book, that even so more when he did that. But it was good for people in general, because his heart was for the people, and that's what he did. And for us, it made it so good. From there, we're growing. Today, this is the second generation of people that are growing. They're going forward. They're being independent. They're getting educated and having jobs and looking after their families today. So that's the outcome of it for me.
Did you find a lot of racism in Chetwynd?
Oh yeah, sure, of course, yeah. So anyway, and that's basically what it was fighting. But anyway, it rather than go into details of what it took, at one time my council, when I was out of town, managed to cancel the project and inform the province that the council cannot support it. So the project was canceled, and I had to restart it right from the beginning. And it was just unbelievable to get it through. And I finally informed my council, look, this project will happen, whether you like it or not, or whether it has to go over my dead body. This is what we will do.
Thankfully, the risk paid off. By 1971, these families were given an incredible opportunity from the federal government, a first of its kind in Canada. They called it a co-op project. They were given mortgages to build new homes in a subdivision called Wabi Crescent.
Jean Riom phoned me. He was an executive, a native, incidentally, from Manitoba. He was a senior position with CMHC. He said, look, I have a call from Ron Basford, and he wants me to work with you on this crazy idea you have about building houses in Chetwynd. He said, I want to come out right away because he's too good. We can't wait to these sons of bitches in Ottawa to change their mind. So out they came with Louise Hayes. I don't know whether you remember her. And I got a call from Vancouver. We wanted to go down to Victoria first to assure that the provincial government is tuned in, because they would have to supply the land, and basically agree with the project.
We got together and we worked with Frank Oberly to kind of guide us through the whole applying for that land and the housing. And I didn't realize that we were the first Aboriginal group across Canada to be able to work with CMHC. I didn't know that till way later, that we were the first Aboriginal group to work with CMHC.
This house to our left was Philip and Betty Gladue.
And I do believe they were the first ones to get a phone.
To get a phone down
Yeah,
there? Yeah.
get a rotary phone.
So that's where we made all our phone calls from?
Yeah, we all went there. We had to pay 10 cents.
10 cents? Well, they must have got rich out of those dimes because they now live in Vancouver.
And so I called a few of the native leaders together and a few of the community leaders like Father Youngblood, the doctor, and John and Ruth Lennox, and you know, some people that I could trust to have some vision about this thing. And we laid out we discovered an idea that I thought was worth pursuing. And that was that we establish a housing corporation. We invite eligible families to it, and they would all work on the project and build their own houses with the help, of course, of professional plumbers and electricians and a couple of carpenters that would teach them the trade on the way along. And we would pay them or credit them with $3 for every hour they worked on the project. And the $3 would be the down payment, and at the end they would own their house, and they would have an additional mortgage on it. But whether CMHC subsidizes the mortgage or the rent is really immaterial. But the right of ownership, you know, which none of them had ever experienced, was an important building block in improving your social condition, in my view anyway.
Funnest time of my life.
Why?
There's a lot of fun, a lot of friends. 3 or 4 people in every house, boys and girls and everything. We had a blast. Everybody had things to do all the time. We had a lot of fun. Nobody owned much, but we all got together and just had a blast. All the time. We had something to do every night, every day. Just playing.
The actual original park was actually located in behind Bill and Blanche Gladue's place, in between the corner of the street and in back of the bush. Everything was all wood, trees, made out of wood and trees. It's whatever the workers could scrap together. That's what our playground was. So a lot of slivers back when we were kids. Slides were a little tough, but that's what made us tough.
Although officially the neighborhood was called Wabi Crescent, the residents seemed fond of the name Sesame Street.
I believe probably about, I'd say 5 years after we incorporated here, with myself, got a cousin Ernie, and there was a Bert down the street. My mother was referred to as Big Bert. She was a tall lady, and all of a sudden Sesame Street was, I actually don't ever remember it not being referred to as Sesame Street. So
did you take it negatively or positively?
I took it positively. It was always in humor for me. It was always in humor. So being that I'm Oscar, I always was almost a little prideful little tidbit that I'd relay to people that I met in town. I'm from Sesame Street. I'm Oscar.
My experience with the term Sesame Street was kind of hilarious in a way. A man over there, his name is Ron, he was the first one to actually explain to me a little bit about Sesame Street. His bus burned. And so when the insurance adjuster came out to see him, Ron turned around and was asked the question, where were you when the trailer, your bus burned? He turned around and said, I was at Sesame Street. And the man said, what? He says, yes, I was drinking beer with Big Bird. He just lived down the road. Then he says, what? He says, yes, Bert and Ernie were there. Oscar wasn't there. Oscar was somewhere else. So the nickname Sesame Street has an affectionate side to it. And that affection actually goes for over years and years.
Played on the streets, kids, you grew groups, 50, we played in the bush. We lived in the bush when we lived in Moccasin Flats. We went to Sesame Street, we actually had lights. Wasn't many, but the far end of Sesame Street was all bush. We went, did anything. We played the whole street, all the kids played together. My mom repaired all the bikes for the kids. She was the one that, your bike broke down, Mom repaired it. We played street hockey, we played kick the can, every kind of game you can think of, ante, I over. Things that the kids don't do nowadays. We're always outside.
But I've left something out. There's a house in Moccasin Flats where 14 people live in 3 small rooms.
From paper thin-walled tar shacks which didn't have power or running water, these families endorsed a plan to relocate, build, and to move into newly constructed homes. These new homes would come with city water, sewer, and electricity.
I'm gonna build me a dream. You're gonna build it with my heart. There's a voice deep inside me saying, make a brand new start. Make a brand new start. I see a new day coming, and it's coming very fast. And I wondered if I want this, for I'm haunted by the past. Yes, I'm haunted by the past. There's love in my house to keep me satisfied. My dreams can't be shattered by the stormy times of life. Yes, I see a new day coming, it's coming very fast. And I've wondered if I want this, for I'm haunted by the past. I'm building for my children, for I know it's gonna last. But I find myself looking through the window of the past. Through the window of the past. Yes, I see a new day coming, and it's coming very fast. And I wondered if I want this, for I'm haunted by the past. Yes, I'm haunted by the past.
The mortgage payments will cost about $120 a month. The estimated monthly hydro bill is $12 to $15. Gas for the furnace, another $20, $2 to $3 for water. And for many families, the total costs almost equal what they were paying back at the flats.
They offered small municipalities like ours to get in partnership with them and establish low rental housing units that the native people could live in, you know, modern units that would have running hot and cold water, of course, and so on.
There's been a lot of pride taken in some of the homes. Other homes have, you know, I guess give myself a little push. Thank goodness they were built strong enough. They're still looking pretty good. And there's been quite a bit of work done by others in the homes, new kitchens and stucco and siding, and things have been repaired, new siding. Houses have had some additions on, and yeah, I believe the community's been a good one.
I see a new day coming, and it's coming very fast. And I wonder if I want this, for I'm haunted by the past. Yes, I wonder if I want this, for I'm haunted by the past.
We were one of the first families to move into that community, I remember. My mom and dad's house. In fact, the small irony of it, they still live in that same house, my parents. The first house on the right, as after the bridge, I always used to tell my friends, 4,700, you know. I remember them dancing. I remember the Indian dancers on there. But I didn't know who they were, but I remember us kids, little kids running around, and all this excitement was happening in the air, and it was inauguration. You know, they built the basement side up to the top. I remember that. And I remember us as kids playing in the bathroom and all flushing it and going, wow, flush it again, you know. And that was so cool, that water comes back again, you know. So, you know, just those little basic necessities is still alive in what I am as a kid.
When we first moved here, I thought it was a castle because it had everything in it. Water, lights, we had bedrooms for the kids. It was different. It's excitement. I don't know how to explain it, but it was really something else for us. We thought we'd never own.
My dad was Harvey McFeeters. He was kind of a no-nonsense, loud, gruff guy, and which actually led him to being kind of a foreman. It was a non-paying job, obviously, but it was a job that he took with pride, because he helped organize each and every family member that worked on their house. He kept track of hours, because you had to show the time that you put into your house and stuff. And he was a part of well, he was the main organizer of that. So it was a prideful thing to see in the book that I read with Mr. Oberle, from Moccasin Flats to Parliament Hill. That was to read my dad's name in there. I read that with quite pride, and showed what my dad was capable of doing when he wanted to.
Many nights when the Moberly sun was hanging low, the young man would come.
For me, it was, I didn't know anything different, so I couldn't judge it. I couldn't give it any type of comparison to another lifestyle. For me, it was just life in itself, right? So I enjoyed every minute of it. It was just, I still talk about it. We were talking about how that Bruce Springsteen song, when does it become relevant in our lives? Glory days, right? And so as we get older, we start thinking about our past, right? Because when we're younger, we're just thinking about the next day. Now we're kind of reflecting and coming back, and I remember those times, and it was times that, you know, I wouldn't trade for the world. It was.
Consider them glory days.
Oh, absolutely. They were like no responsibility, no accountability, no those types of things, right? You just go out, come home after school, go out with your friends, play hockey, do whatever you wanted to, and wait for the Moccasin Telegraph, right? Come home, Spike! And my mom had such a distinct yell that people started mimicking her, right? So then they would be like, Spike, get the hell home right now! And I'd come running, and she'd be like, I didn't call you.
Kick, cut the grass. Kick, cut the grass. Go like this. Kick, cut the grass. Kick, cut the grass. Kick. There, you're ready. You're ready for a happy song? Yupper. Say, hey, we're from Moccasin Flats. Last call. Last call. Whatever makes you
As they speak of the change that came from Moccasin Flats to Wabi Crescent, they are contributors to a new life for dozens of children who made their way into the bigger world of Canada. We look at Darlene Campbell, and I think Darlene and her family have been a bridge between the 19th, 20th, and 21st centuries.
I think I was blessed when I was adopted by my grandparents. It was the gift that I got from my grandparents is speaking Cree fluently because I was around elders all my life and raised with them as a child since I was a child.
I wish I could turn back the years of that, like the time.
Yes.
You know, to turn back the clock and have my grandma back again. Because to this day, the memories will never go away. They're always there.
My grandma worked very hard raising 4 of us after she raised all her 9 kids, and then she adopted 4 of us grandchildren. My grandma, for extra dollars, she used to make hides every day. All my life I could remember her making hides. As you can see on the one video, this is what she did for extra dollars to for us to put food on a table or for reason.
I look at Marceline, and I think she knows how to take the hair off a moose hide and soften it and ply it into supple, tough moccasins to last a man 2 years. And in the big cities, there are thousands of big and little kids who dream of learning how to do these things, of living close to the land, getting away from the pavement and the broadloom and the colored stoves and toilets they grew up on, and making it on their own, on the land. But Marceline and her Métis family and neighbors never chose to live this way. They had no choice. Not welcome in the towns. Jobs scarce for a Métis man. This life is normal for Marceline. It's not bad, she says. She makes her moccasins and beadwork, sometimes a coat, babysits the grandchildren while the young people go away to work. And if they move into town, into this new project people are talking about, Marceline thinks that would be better.
On the one hand, our story is sometimes bittersweet, since some children and grandchildren died of violence, drugs, and alcohol.
Growing up here, I've seen a lot down the street. I've seen stuff that you shouldn't have to see as a kid, but you see. My uncle got shot and killed. This was back when I was an early teenager, just down at the end of the street. He was shot and killed and partying, and I've seen my neighbors, 6, 7, 8 cops ready to shoot him, and he was screaming to shoot me. He wanted to go. And you know, you're a kid and you're seeing this. This is stuff in the movies. And I've also been in a house where we kicked the guy out and he come back with a gun, started putting bullets through the house. So that's what we kind of grew up with. But for me, this is home. This is I wouldn't want to be anywhere else in the world.
I remember going through my first man battle. I was 12 years old, you know, right back here. 3 men beat me up. And to this day, I think about that, and, you know, and that's the kind of world I lived in, those battles. And, you know, now I think about it and I'm like, holy man, it's funny no one got killed, you know, that I was really close to, you know, like that, you know, violence. But it was always sticking up for each other, you know, and helping. But it did get to that point, you know, with alcoholism, like throughout the street, you know, but that all done away with. And, you know, I'm glad my parents went to Christianity when I was a young boy. I was 11 when they started coming. My mom started believing.
12.
And I became a Christian at 12 and believed ever since. And it's been a hard struggle ever since, you know. I believe, but I just gotta stay strong.
Old friend, tell me how have you been?
But on the other hand, our story is also one of personal success for many children and grandchildren. In fact, this story is of succession from Moccasin Flats to Wabi Crescent to all points in BC.
From that, our kids graduated. That was the key thing. When the kids graduated, where they were comfortable to study in the house with lights and warmth and running water, and they didn't have to do all that work. And it made a big difference. They graduated and they got educated and started working at early age and still graduated, and that was awesome to see.
You know, and I look at the documentary Moccasin Flats, and I always say to people, you know, there was one lady, there was just my great uncle's grandmother, well, I call her Cookham, Marceline was better known as. She said, will it be worth it? She goes, I don't know in the end. I think there's successes and tragedies in every story, and the good thing about a document like this is we're going to show the successes. We know a lot of our people, what we went through in our history and where we've been, and today I think it's time to celebrate our successes and show that it was worth it, because at the end of the day, where would we have gone after if the current community of Wabi Crescent, aka Sesame Street, wasn't built? Who knows, because we were threatened to be kicked off that land.
Yes, dance, dance, dance to the music.
We asked Debbie Gladu, who in the original film of Moccasin Flats dances on the ice with her sister Sandra. How did a little Métis girl venture into the big city and succeed?
So when we went to school, I think it was just instilled in us through maybe family interactions, like the whole family. And we just carried that with us. All those values that maybe I didn't see as a child were instilled. So when I went to the community to go to school or participate in activities, I knew I could do anything. My grandmother, actually, one of my grandmothers did not speak English.
What did she speak?
Oh, pardon me. She did not read English, sorry. She could speak, but I think of her now as very amazing because she could bake bannock. I've never seen bannock like that done before. It was fluffy, and I've never seen it. It was very beautiful. She could sew. She could tan a hide. And she was very loving to all of us grandchildren. Very loving person. And that stayed with me. And like now today, if I'm having a rough day, it's those kind of memories and those kind of values that have helped me become successful. Because I go back and I think of that, of the values that community had.
We look at Dean Gladu. We ask, how did your childhood and life in Wabi Crescent help you succeed?
As I got older, I started to realize some of the things that I was taught as a young boy can now come into reality as a police officer. My culture, being proud of who I am. My Muslim, Louis Glad used to say, Napis, ayape, he would say, sit down, let me tell you. Never be ashamed of where you are and where you come from. Always be proud of where you come from. I never understood that. But then as I learned about the rebellion, the Métis struggles, I started to understand later in life why he kept saying that to me. We discovered, as the evolution of Canada goes through, that I had come from a very proud nation, of very proud peoples, and that's the Métis Nation of Canada. And that comes from the Red River. We come from the Lake St. Anne's and the different Métis settlements out there. Kelly Lake, and which is then our community became Moccasin Flats, which is a proud little community, but we never became a really structured, organized community. We just, families just won it day by day. We just, whatever we can find that day, if we found a little mouse running by, we shot it and cooked it. No, I'm just kidding. But maybe that's why I like chicken. No. and KFC. No, I think, and that's the other thing, is the humor of our people too.
Yeah. We asked Shelby Desjardins, now a successful business owner in Vancouver, who was a first-generation resident of Wabi Crescent, what was your childhood like?
Those close connections and coming home after school and being able to go out and just play and not have any worries or any responsibilities or any accountability. And it helped us to create kind of a community, right? Not all of us were related, not all of us were close, but within that street there was a community there. If somebody yelled, "Hey Spike, it's time to come home," another mother would yell, and we call it the Indian telegraph. So you'd yell down the street until we got to the end of the creek where everybody was playing. "Oh, Spike, time to go home," right? So for me, it was a way of life. I didn't know any different, and it was the best life I could have ever asked for.
We asked Roland Gansafles what life was like. Roland was in the original film as a small mixed blonde child who is dearly loved by his grandfather Louis Gladue.
This was my grandpa's place, this one. So, and then that one was my uncle's, another uncle over there, two more aunt and uncles over here. So the whole family kind of lived here after they built the houses. Like everybody always, like my nicknames and everything were always good. Like even Chief Wooden Shoes, they called me because Dad was Dutch, and so it was always fun.
We ask Oscar McFeeters, who remains as a Métis leader in the community, why he stayed in Wabi Crescent.
I remember now, probably about 3 years ago, rummaging through my attic. I was altering a light in one of the bedrooms, and I come across a bag that was underneath the insulation up top, and out of the bag I pulled out probably about 10 Christmas cards that were sent to my mother and my grandmother, who were living in my house now. That was from all the members of the street. All the street used to give each other cards. It was a very tight-knit street community. We all knew each other, and it's sad to see a lot of them had moved away, but a lot of them gone on to bigger and better things. And to me, this is home. I'm born and raised here, and they'll be spreading some of my ashes on some of these driveways. But and there'll be lots of ashes to spread, so I can do a lot of driveways.
55 years later, everyone who was or still is part of this community honors this project as a gift. It's a gift that has touched the lives of many individuals, including those who are no longer with us to share their marvelous stories.
There was a place when I was younger, we just called it Moccasin Flats. We had no power, running water. In the winter we melted snow to take a bath. Some were loggers, some were trappers. Bannock and moose meat was a favorite food. There were hard times, we shared what we had. We were one big family, me and you. Today the houses are all gone. An airport stands where we once lived. We all moved across the creek, the place that we call Sesame Street.